Autumn by Donna Ashworth. Most rejoice at the sight of spring, but I have always loved autumn. Rich, righteous colors, a shedding of weight and submission to a force larger than you. The revelation of one's true self, bare and unafraid, warmed and dressed not by folly, but by innate wisdom, and the knowing that this is as it must be, and everything will pass. Autumn does not shudder at the thought of winter ahead. It peacefully basks in the last of the sun, counting every moment as a blessing and a vital part of the journey. It lets its leaves fall to the ground to nurture the new, like droplets of nourishing gold, and finds peace where no peace existed before. I've always loved autumn. It's the letting go, you see. Let it go. Good morning, and welcome to church on this rather gray October day, but not as gray as yesterday. I am Mary Jean Taylor, honored to be service coordinator this day while our minister, the Reverend Dr. Leon Dunkley, is away. He will return next week, and we look forward to that. As you all well know, unless this marks your first visit here, this is not your ordinary run-of-the-mill church. And that's precisely the reason why we love the North Chapel so very much. It is a most special place, a most special space. Under this roof, within these walls, all are truly welcome and safe. Peace is found, joy celebrated, sorrow shared. And while our church is beautiful, it becomes sacred because you are here. Thank you for bringing the blessing of your presence to this day. Your order of service is not only a guide to the now, but to what happens here in between the Sundays. Take a peek so you don't miss something you might like to partake in. Pay particular attention, if you would, to the back of that. There's a big announcement about the Red Flannel Hash Supper, which is coming up. A wonderful tradition of ours, whether you like red flannel hash or not. And it's a love-hate thing. Would we say, Anne? I love Anne. I hate red flannel hash. But that's because I don't like beets. But the number of people who love it and support this dinner and this church by doing so is remarkable. So take a look. Anne's sitting in the back. If you don't know who she is, she's the person to talk to with any offers of help you can give. We have one other announcement, but before that happens, does anybody else have an announcement that they haven't talked to me about? Okay, well then we are going to call some friends up, Deb and Mary, who are going to treat us, I hear.
Wow, it is freezing in here. I know, isn't it great? We came up with this great plan. You must not have read about it in In Touch this week.
Sorry, I didn't, or I would have worn a heavy coat.
The board and the finance committee met last week and we came up with this amazing idea. The cost of heating oil is $4.29 a gallon. So we thought, we'll turn off the heat and keep the thermostat at 40 degrees for the whole month of November. And that will save us so much money.
I'm not so sure about that. People may just stay home.
Come on, it's just for a month. If you'd read In Touch, you would have known that you were supposed to wear a coat today. And they had other suggestions too, like bringing a sleeping bag, a hot water bottle, a hot potato, a thermos of hot tea, or a blanket. See, I'm dressed warmly, I'm just fine. So come on, bundle up and support the church and come.
I think it is a crazy idea. None of us want to be cold. I think I will write an email to the board in protest.
We're just trying to be financially responsible and transparent, as we've been saying in our inserts. Where the cost of heating oil is high, this is a big part of our church budget. If you'll just pledge, then we'll know where we stand financially and we can be responsible about our 2024 budget. Our pledge drive ends on November 19th. So in protest, just pledge instead of complaining.
Well,
No, wait a minute, I have one more thing to say. So if everybody will pledge, by the end of our drive, we'll turn the heat back up to 65 and everybody will be happy.
what an incentive. I will definitely send my pledge in soon so I can be warm.
Good idea. If you need a pledge form, they're more at the back of the church.
This month, our services celebrate curiosity. And to be honest, I struggled to find the perfect words to share with you today. I landed, though, on verses that brought me to a place of exploration of many difficult feelings in my own heart, which just happens to be gasping for air right now. I hope they will speak to you as they have to me. These words are from Lao Tzu. Always we hope someone else has the answer. Some other place will be better. Some other time it will all turn out. This is it. No one else has the answer. No other place will be better, and it has already turned out. At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are, and you know what you want. There is no need to run outside for better seeing, nor to peer from a window. Rather, abide at the center of your being, for the more you leave it, the less you learn. Search your heart and see the way to do is to be. I'm sure you've read about Simon and his life of giving in your order of service. And like you, I am always grateful when friends and visitors share their story. I like to ask our guest reflectors to tell me some things that are not in their official bio. Simon tells me that he has lived in the Upper Valley since 1996 and has been, in his own words, somewhat connected to the North Chapel since 2001. We're happy to see you whenever we can. He is proud of the fact that he has succeeded in honoring his mother's wish that he discover English literature by reading some works of fiction this year. She's very proud. In addition to his love of train rides, he enjoys chopping firewood and scything his lawn. And I never knew you pronounced it that way until I looked it up to find out how you pronounced it. I've also never known anybody who scythes their own lawn. So, yay, Simon. We are so glad that you are here. And we have gratitude to you for the time that you've spent crafting your words, and as well to all whose grace and efforts have built today's service. To John Atwood, hiding back there, for his music. To Peggy Cannonstein, who sent the painting that's hanging with Sherry, and Sherry greeted you here today. And for all the unseen folks who do the work every week to pull our Sundays together. Simon, we are all ears, and the floor is all yours.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful for me to be here and invited back to speak with you again. In order to prepare this time, I reviewed some of the reflections that I offered in the past. There were some philosophical ones that where the word paradigm shift figured prominently, and then some more confessional ones where I would come back to you like the prodigal son to clarify some points about a story where I'd gotten into trouble or into the news. It's really a privilege. In this room, I am subjectified in that my point of view is given the floor. When you offer me your ear, you also give me voice. You call me agent. In affirming that you believe I'm a human being, you also affirm my life. Today I want to spend some time on the other side of the subject-object divide, because along with the chance to give voice and life to one another, we also have the chance to do the other thing, that is to take them away. One group of people who are easy to objectify are those who arrive, as I did this past summer, helpless and intoxicated in the emergency room. Before sharing the story, I want to emphasize that I've been very vehement about my opposition to drugs, so much so that once when I was in high school, I overheard a friend of mine saying to someone who, at a party, who brought out a hash pipe, okay, but don't let Simon know. So naturally, about an hour after unknowingly eating some THC-infused chocolates I found in a Ziploc baggie in the back of my freezer, I concluded what anyone who is losing his ability to walk and talk and think would conclude, that I was having a stroke. My housemate, not suspecting my chocolate thievery, agreed to bring me to DHMC. And though the intake nurse didn't agree with my diagnosis, she did agree to give me an EKG, which showed no sign of stroke. And I returned back to the waiting room, starting to be amused by the situation, starting to laugh a bit, and still convinced that I was going to die at any minute. And my housemate, who had driven me to the hospital, seeing my amusement, thought to ask me if I had eaten any chocolates from the freezer. We let the receptionist know that the stroke had subsided and departed the ER as quickly as we had arrived. And as you might guess, these events have been a great source of amusement to myself and to my friends ever since. At the time, I also found it humiliating. I had been reminded of what it feels like to be objectified. It was a gross feeling, like something had gotten on me that I couldn't wash off. On reflection, I was struck by how easy it is for people in adversity to become an it. But of course, your laughter is a relief. It serves to subjectify me as well, and lets me off the hook. Through my work with DIGS, making shelters for the unhoused, I had the chance to be on the other side of the fence, making trips to the ER that were not a laughing matter. In one instance, I'm embarrassed to say, feeling the critical gaze of the others in the waiting room, I searched for a way to communicate my distance from the situation. I was only there to help. I wanted to identify myself as being on the other side of a pre-existing community line, But the truth is, I should have been as charitable about this situation as you were about mine. It too was subjected to causes and conditions which I might not understand, but if I did, I would be sympathetic. This past year, I learned a lot about the causes and conditions which lead to homelessness. From the consequence of another, most serious journey to the ER, one of Diggs's residents had suffered from a severe burn, and as soon as I handed him over to the medical team at DHMC, he was medevaced to the burn clinic in Boston, where he stayed off and on for the next 9 months. Because he had been staying in a hut that he and I had built together, I believed I might be responsible for his injuries. Investigations showed that not to be the case, and thankfully he is back at home recovering well. I saw him this morning, as it happens. But while he was at the hospital, his girlfriend and I formed what I think is a lasting friendship during weekly pilgrimages to Boston. On the way down and back, she told me about her and her partner's life history, in her case going back several generations, and I promise you there's a book in there somewhere. I learned how her grandfather, a socialist intellectual and political dissident, migrated from Sweden to New Hampshire, and how due to this flight from political persecution, her own father never received a basic education and became homeless before she was born. I also learned about the early childhood about the man we were going to visit. It was not at all hard for me to connect the dots between abuse sustained in early childhood, to addiction, to homelessness, to incarceration. And when we arrived at the hospital, it was also apparent to me that this life had resulted in some extremely noble characteristics as he took his situation somehow in stride, repeatedly expressing concern for his nursing staff and others, though in a state of acute suffering himself. The whole experience was important to me. I came to feel close to them both. It was for me an extended process of subjectification, as these individuals were made understandable by being placed in their historical context. I should note at this point that the English word subjectification, perhaps coined by the French philosopher Michel Foucault, is being wrongly used here. There is no English word to mean the restoration of our understanding of a person's humanity. Objectification seems not to have an opposite. Perhaps this is because the process of objectifying a human is not a natural act. If I may say, it's more natural for us to love one another. Nonetheless, I confess that my own faculties of objectification are alive and well. That line that I draw between myself and the unhoused community may have become more porous, but in truth it remains. I've noticed that I still hold a fixed category of humans that doesn't have a home, to which I don't belong, and a category of humans that have a home, to which I do, and I can perceive the line in the flutter of mental dissonance when I hear stories of those who transition from housed to unhoused, or vice versa, as if part of me is left wondering, how is this possible? And if I am going to be honest, I have to admit that I may still harbor an unspoken belief that the people who I put on the other side of this line may not suffer in the same way I do. Perhaps they're not as deserving as I am. I want to exclude them from my human family, and the only way to do this is to hold the view that they are somehow less human. I said that I draw this line in the sand, but perhaps it would be more accurate to say that it runs across my heart. To maintain a line like this is an act of profound self-diminishment. By carving up the human family, we reduce our notions about who and what we are. It's not unusual. Another word for putting people on the other side of an imaginary line is othering, or in more advanced stages, dehumanization, all acts with profound spiritual consequences. Tragically, of course, these acts have political and legal consequences as well. They are essential aspects of any effort to garner public support for projects which harm human beings. The greater the harm, the greater the dehumanization needed for its justification. The mainstream news is often a willing participant. When I heard NPR parroting Israeli Defense Minister Gallant's statement about Hamas rebels, "We are fighting human animals and we are acting accordingly," I knew atrocities would follow. Indeed, societal agreement about an exterminated group's lack of humanity is often present when societies commit acts of genocide and slavery. Without dehumanization, human extermination would not be remotely tolerable. And interrupting such a campaign can be disruptive. I've noticed that some people feel threatened by my work over the past few years building shelters for the unhoused. Often people have tried to persuade me against the work by suggesting forcefully that those I was helping are not deserving. And Hartford's pushback against people trying to survive in tents, cars, and RVs, and against those trying to support them, has been fierce. The resistance to the Haven's proposed low-barrier shelter in Hartford came not from a fringe group, but from the pillars of the community. The underlying logic of their message was simple: we don't want these people in our community. It was not whispered behind closed doors. Despite the fact that the unhoused are an extremely diverse group that are systemically created by, among other factors, a 7,000-unit Upper Valley housing shortage, this message was openly stated or implied from the floor of public forums by nearly everyone who opposed the plan. And in the end, the proposal that would have provided life-saving relief was defeated. But is the level of othering of the unhoused leading to something akin to an extermination? I can't say for sure. We don't know because we don't know the case fatality rate of being unsheltered. We can't seem to bring ourselves to crunch the numbers. But one thing is certain, it's always been high, and with the advent of fentanyl, it has become even higher. The people that have a better sense of this number are the unsheltered themselves. They know because they painfully remember the members of their community who are lost every year, and they know in their hearts how often the news comes. The summer before last, I visited some friends in a tent on the day after an overdose had happened. Knowing that their grief needed recognition, Patty Hernandez, Brian Lucart, and I, two friends, went down to the river behind the state office buildings to the home of Leslie and Hogan. After a heartfelt conversation about what had happened, about the loss, the pain, the sadness of it all, Leslie surprised us with a quip. "Don't worry, next time it'll be someone else. Next week it will be someone else." Though her attitude was different, her assumption of losing her friends was akin to those fighting on the front lines. It occurred to me, I also harbor a doubt that Leslie and Hogan too will be gone before I see them next. Though I've recently been more out of the loop, I recently ran into Leonard, and when I asked him who he's been in touch with from the old gang, he told me glibly, "Everyone's dead." After a pause, we took a moment to list off all the folks who have died in the past couple of years. Oak Nelson, composer who used to sell beats to hip-hop artists. Trinity Pierce, tough girl with a ready retort to any situation who boys flock to. Jason Moot, who spoke about inventions he could make out of a broken generator. Todd McGee, a Gulf War vet who loved his dog. Jessica Morehouse, beautiful one whose body was found in a dumpster. What did they die of? Diabetes, cancer, violence, overdose. It doesn't make much difference. It all boils down to the same thing: the stress of living outside, the stress of exclusion from the human family. Another friend from this group once told me the same thing in the same words, the girlfriend that I traveled down to Boston with. She said also, everyone's dead. And to put a finer point on it, she showed me a photograph from 2001 Upper Valley News article about a White River Junction encampment down by the river. In the picture, there she was, sitting proudly outside the encampment along with 5 others. Other than herself, only 2 remain. So that's a sample of 6, of which 50% has died in 2 decades. A slightly larger sample can be derived from the 122 vouchered residents in Hartford vouchered with COVID relief money. Of the 122, 11 perished in 1 year in 2020, so that's about 10%. I don't mention these things to rail against the policies and practice that result in these outcomes. That project would not be appropriate in a house of worship. I mention them to ask the question if we may still be prone to othering unto death, dehumanization as a prelude to extermination. Could this be happening not in the annals of history, not in a far-off land, but right here in small-town New Hampshire and Vermont? Why ask the question? Is there something that we on the other side of this deadly divide might do with the news everyone's dead, sent to us from beyond? We who can barely make time in our overburdened lives to grieve our own losses, which are so many. We whose human family is already carved up beyond repair. We already reside in a fraction of our hearts. We could have so much to lose and so much to gain.